Hey everybody, Patty Ann here. Please excuse my hair. It's still wet because I saw early this morning that Diana had asked a question and she said she had been working on something for a couple of hours. So I thought I'd just jump in the shower real quick and not even dry my hair and come on down in here and try to help her so she can get on with her project. So follow me to my computer and let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, here's what Diana said. Technical trace problem. Hey there, I'm trying to trace this image. So when I trace it, it does not want to trace the gray border. I don't know how to do this very well. So I get everything except the gray border. Then the interior lines turn out to be a very thick red trace line. So when I cut it, it makes multiple passes. I'm not sure how to fix this and need step-by-step help if anyone is willing to walk me through this. I would greatly appreciate it. I don't know how much about this, or I don't know much about this trace function, but have been working on this for a good hour and I can't get it to work correctly. Thanks for your kindness, time, and suggestions. So here we go. I'm going to show her how to fix this. Okay, the first thing that I did was I found the image that she was using on Google, and it's right here. I'm going to right click on that and say copy image, and then I'm going to come over to Silhouette, right click and paste. Okay, here it is. Let me delete this one because I've already done it. Alright, so let me make this larger. And I know already that I'm going to have a little bit of an issue with this, but I'm going to show you how we fix it. So the first thing I'll do is I'll come over to the little tool that looks like a piece of toast to me or a butterfly, depending on your point of view. I'll click on the butterfly or the toast, and that opens the trace panel. And I'm just going to say select the trace area. I'll click on trace, select the trace area. Then I can come over to my image and trace around the parts that I would like to make into an SVG. Like that. But notice it doesn't get all the pieces that I want, so I need to up the threshold by coming over here where there's this little slider and just sliding it over. Okay, until it gets what I like. If I go too far, look, it's getting some of the checkerboard since that was a PNG image. It comes in with that checkerboard behind it. If I go too low, it doesn't get a very nice outline. So that looks pretty good. Let me scroll into this with this little magnifying glass that looks like an insect or a bug to me, a beetle. I'm going to scroll in and look at this jagged lines right here. Okay, I'm not going to concern myself too much with them because I'm going to show you how to get rid of that. But I want to look at this inner line and make sure that it's pretty smooth. So I'm going to mess around with my threshold to see if I go up or down, which way I can get it to be smoother looking. And that looks pretty smooth to me. The inner line, this looks horrible right here, just terrible. You wouldn't want your cutting machine to cut all these little jaggedy edges, but I'll show you how to fix that. So we're just going to say trace. And when it's done tracing, I'll zoom back out with this little magnifying minus sign. Way out. Okay. And I'm going to bring this piece off because I no longer need it and get it way out of the way so it doesn't confuse us. Back over this way, and I'm going to pull this thing up onto the white space so we can work there and you can see more clearly what I'm doing. Alright, so remember, let's zoom in and look at that outer line again, and look what a mess that is. And oh my gosh, look at all this junk we have on the outside here too that we don't want, but that's okay because we're going to get rid of that, and I'll show you how. So the next thing I'm going to do, like I always do when I trace stuff, is I'm going to click on the outermost, whoops, go back. Make sure I have the selection tool selected. Click on the outermost part and come up here to where the paint little palette thing is. Well, not the color palette is. And click on that. And I'm going to change this to a color that I'm not going to be using, which is probably a light blue. I know I won't be using that. The next thing I do is I always come up here to Object, Release the compound path, because what that's going to allow me to do is to color each individual piece of this image separately. Okay, so right now if I try to color the C for Colorado, the color it is, I can't just click on it to get it. But when I click on this whole thing and come up here to Object, Release the compound path, What that's going to do is put little boxes or little selection boxes around each item in this object. So watch. Okay, look at that. And you can see not only is there the object we want, but there's all this extra junk out here that we don't want. But that's okay. We'll get rid of that too. So click off, and I'm going to start coloring. So let me get the image I need back in here so I can copy from it. Come here, you. Okay. And scroll in. So I'm going to make, I guess I'll start with the innermost part first. Going to click on the inside circle. As you can see, that's that dark blue color. So I can come up here to the color swatch area, get the eyedropper, and come over here and get the exact color I want. Perfect. Now let's go to the next thing that's coming out. That would be the C. So again, I'd come up here to the color swatch area, get the eyedropper, and change that to the color I want it to be. Perfect. All right, now we have these three pieces that are all the blue color. So I can click on one, hold down my shift key, click the second one, still holding my shift key down, get the third one, and then come up here to the color swatch area. Now since I've already used the eyedropper to grab that color, it's right up here in this top row, right there. Perfect. All right, the next thing we want to do is the white part. So I'm going to click on that, and I believe it gets it all. Let's change it to white. Okay, that's looking fabulous. Now the part she had trouble with was making the gray. I'll show you how you can do the gray easily. You'll just, whoopsie, click on the outermost edge, and the way I know I have the outermost triangle selected is look at the color of it. It's blue. And if I look up here in the color area, it's the thing I have selected is blue. I'll show you something. Watch. I'll select the C. Look at the color of the C. Look up here to see what color I have selected. Okay? So I want the light blue color selected, and not those little tiny boxes that I'm accidentally selecting. So clicked on it again, and I got this color, and I wanted to make it that gray color. But here's the problem with this. Ordinarily, this would work pretty well. But since this was a transparent image and I didn't get that great of a trace on it, it's going to have some really ugly, jagged lines. Let's scroll in and look. See that? You certainly don't want your machine cutting all of that. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Something a little bit different this time. And for those of you who've been following me for a while, I've not done this yet, so it might be a new little tip for you. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this gray thing totally out of here. I don't even want it, right? Because the red or the outline of the white triangle looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that white triangle, come over here to the offset panel, which is the little star with an offset on it. Click on that, and I'm going to say offset. Now, I might want this to be the exact same size as it was on the original one. So let me bring this triangle back over here. Like that. Because now what I can do is I can keep making my offset big, this offset, until it's the size I want it to be. Now I can stretch it like this if I want to, or what I'm going to do is actually this. I should have just left the gray one there to begin with. Let's go back so I don't confuse you. All right, so here we were. Okay, we went ahead and traced everything. Looks beautiful. We colored everything, and then I said to you, but look, that gray is horrible. You do not want your cutting machine cutting like that. And even if I try to simplify the nodes, if I double click, I get all these little things called nodes or points, and the point editing tool comes up. Most of the time I can say simplify, and that will get rid of some of them and make the line straighter. But there's just so much going on this one that I just can't simplify it easily enough. You see, it made that straight, but there's still all these junky lines. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to leave that gray there. This is different than what I just did a moment ago. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this white inner triangle, and I'm going to offset it. And I'm going to make sure that it offsets to a point, not rounded. Okay, I don't want it rounded. I want it going to a point, and for some reason it's not changing. Usually it would change, but I'm going to go ahead then and just increase the offset. Okay, like that. And I'm going to remove this. Then I'm going to just grab, whoopsie, don't want to do that. Control Z. Going to get my selection tool again, grab this, and I'm going to change this to gray. Let's scroll out and see what we have. Okay, I want to show you the difference. Here we have two pieces. Look at the jaggedy lines on this one that your machine would cut, and then look at the line on this one. It's nice and smooth. Notice we do have all these little speckle things left in here that we don't want, because each one of those would cut out. So I'm just going to go ahead and scroll back out and get rid of this triangle, this ugly one. We don't need it anymore. I'm just going to delete it on my keyboard. And so now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to delete this image over here, my sample, because I don't really need it anymore. And let's see, I don't know, I'll have some more over here. I'll just delete those also. Okay, so let's go back to this guy right here. So what I'm going to do now, before I'm totally done with this, remember we have these ugly little lines out here, or points that we don't want, right? I don't want all that junk to cut, for heaven's sake. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to come up here to the palette, the paint palette, the select by color option, way up here at the top. Select by color. Click on that. Usually it opens up by fill. I'm going to change it to usually it opens up by line. I am going to change it to by fill. All right, so I'm going to have it click on just this, and I know there's just one piece of that gray, so I'm just going to move it out. The white, I know there's just one piece of the white, so I'm going to move it out. The red, there's just one piece of that. The blue, on the other hand, if I click on the blue, oh, I need to put this over here. It says only shapes on the media. Let me uncheck that because I don't have this on the media. So now, when I uncheck that, it grabbed these four pieces that are blue. And what I'm going to do is come up here to Object, make a compound path, just like that. And now, check this out. When I drag my mouse over here, look at all these extra pieces. Remember those pieces I said that were stuck there that we didn't want? I can draw a box around all of those and just delete them. And now this thing is ready to go. I can make it smaller so it'll fit on my mat. And of course I can rearrange the things so they're proper, but that won't matter because this is just what's being cut out. With my Cameo, I would go to Send, and I would do it not by line or by simple, but I would do it by fill color. So the first thing I would do is have it cut the gray triangle. Then I could have it cut the white piece, the white triangle. And after it's done with the white piece, I would uncheck it and have it cut the blue piece. Blue pieces, these four pieces. After it's done cutting the blue, I would uncheck it and have it cut the red. Now do be aware that you have to make sure wherever this thing is on your mat, when you send it to cut, that's where your machine thinks your vinyl is. So if you have this down here and you say cut and your vinyl is up here in the upper left hand corner, your machine's going to cut up here and it's going to miss your piece right here. So make sure you put your vinyl wherever this is on your virtual mat. So for example, if I want to cut this over here, I better make sure I have a piece of vinyl up here in the upper right hand corner of my real mat. Alright, so let me go through that one more time. Let's start a new one. And let me change the color of that back to white. I'll just turn off show grids. Okay. I'm going to paste that image in here. Here we go. Make it larger so we can see. I'm going to go ahead and go over here to the trace tool. Looks like a piece of toast. Select the trace area. Trace around this thing. Doesn't get everything I want. I up the threshold. I'm going to scroll in, remember, and see what that second line looks like, and that looks nice and straight. This outer one looks junky. Now, perhaps if I had found an image that was not a PNG, this wouldn't happen. But since this is a PNG and it opened like this, I have that junkiness going on and I don't like it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just say trace anyway because I like the other traces. They're nice and smooth lines, right? So I'm going to say trace. Going to move this out. And I'm not, let's look and see, were my trace lines as ugly as I thought? Yep, look at that. Again, you don't want your machine doing that. Okay, there's a couple of little jogs in here. Watch how I can get rid of those though. I'll double click on this. I get all these points or nodes. And when I double click, this option comes available, point editing panel. I can say simplify. And did you see what that did? That got rid of some of the nodes. It simplified it. And now look how straight this line is here. Let me undo that so you can see what it did look like. See those jogs right there? I'm going to double click on it to get the points. See how many points there are right now? When I say simplify, it got rid of a bunch of them. And look how straight this is now. It's perfect. So I can scroll back out or zoom back out and everything's looking good. Just click off and you get rid of those. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, as I always do in my traces, is just come up here to the paints. Well, click on the whole thing. Come up here to the paint swatch area and I'll change it to a color I don't usually use or I'm not going to use in this image. I did the blue. Then I started coloring. I started with the inside. Oh, I can't color yet though, remember? The reason why I can't grab these individually is they're all grouped together as if they're one solid piece. So what I need to do is come up here to Object, Release the Compound Path. And that again puts a little box around everything, or it puts a selection around each thing so I can select things individually. So I have to have it selected first, then come up here to Object, Release the Compound Path. And see all those little selection boxes around everything? If I click off, now I can start grabbing these individually. Okay, I know this first piece in here was that blue, and I showed you how to use the eyedropper tool, but I have that color up here already, so I'll just click it. The next one I did was the C for Colorado, and there's the reddish color. Then I did these three pieces. I did the first one, held down my shift key, grabbed the second and the third, came up here and changed it to the blue, and the last thing that I did right here was got this one and changed it to white. Now ordinarily, if you have a really good image that you've traced, you won't have to do what I'm about to do now, because you won't have this junky zigzag crappy line out here. You see that? Your machine would cut like that. You don't want that. So what I'm going to do to remedy that this time is this. I'm going to just click on this triangle right here, the white one. I know I have the white one selected because I look up here and I see I have white selected. So I'm going to come over here to the offset panel. And I'm going to say offset. And I'm going to change it to sharp corners. And I'm going to up it until it meets, and we can scroll in. What I'm trying to do is just basically make it about the same size as the one that's already there. So it's almost right. Let's make it a little tiny bit bigger. And now since I've done that, I can't just make it bigger. So what I'll have to do is just drag, oops, not that, undo. Drag this line up just a tiny bit like that. Okay. And then while that thing is still selected, I can change its color, well, let's see, to the gray, and scroll back out so we can see what we have. Okay, that's looking really good. The only thing is I want to get rid of that blue thing that was behind there, and lucky me, when I click there, I grabbed it. Look, can you see? So I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of that blue thing. And now we have the perfect image that we wanted. Now you'll notice that there are red lines around each of these pieces. Those are just lines that tell my Cameo where to cut. I can turn those off by grabbing the whole image and coming up here. This is the line color. I can change it to white or transparent by getting these little cross hatches. Then they don't show up anymore, but it'll still cut perfectly. So let's scroll back out one more time, get rid of this one. Remember now, what I like to do if I'm doing vinyl, and certainly if I'm saving this for my Cricut machine, is to make sure I change everything into a compound path if there's more than one piece of a particular color. So to do that, you just click on this thing and you come up here to this little paint palette where it says select by color. Okay, select by color. It opens up usually by line. I'm going to change it by fill color. Okay. I'm going to grab, there is none of this, whoa, there is something like that, that color blue. What in the world is there? Well, let me go through. There's not supposed to be that color. So what I can simply do is just hit delete on my keyboard because there's not supposed to be that color in there at all. So let's do the red. There's only one piece of red, so if I come up here to Object, Make a Compound Path, I can't because it's just one piece already. If I come to the gray, come up here to Object, Make a Compound Path, I can't. There's just one piece of gray. The same thing for the white. If I click on the white, Object, Make a Compound Path, I can't do it. But for the blue, if I come up here to make a compound path, I can. But before I make it a compound path, look, I can move these pieces individually. And if I take this over to Cricut Design Space, they won't stay exactly where I want them to. However, if I make them a compound path by clicking on the blue, which selects all the blue, and now that there's more than one piece, I can come up to Object, Make Compound Path. I hope I'm not confusing you. Just remember, if there's just one piece of a certain color, it's already a compound path. What compound path is doing is making it as if all those pieces that are the same color or all those pieces that you chose are thought of by your computer as one thing. So now that I made the blue a compound path, I can't move that little side piece again by itself because according to the software, this is just one piece. This blue is not 4 individual pieces, it's one piece. So to go to make this in my Cameo, I just go to Send. Right now it came in as cut by line color. I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to come to cut by fill. And I'm going to uncheck all of these. Okay. And I'm going to start with the first one up here at the top or whichever one I want. And by the way, know that you can move these. Whoopsie. If I grab on this one and drag it up, I can move it if I want it to be at the very top for some reason. I can move this gray one down to the bottom. So what I'm doing is just clicking on the color swatch, holding down my mouse key and dragging this. So I can put these in wherever I want them to be, whatever order. But anyway, so I would have it do the red first maybe, and I'd change this to vinyl. Now remember, if you leave your C that's going to cut in red right here, it's going to cut right there on your mat, so you better make sure that your vinyl is there. So before you cut your C, make sure that it's somewhere that you have a hunk of red vinyl. If you're going to cut it down here on the lower left hand side of your mat, make sure there's a piece of red vinyl down there. Okay? After your C is done, what I usually do is just move it off the mat, because on this side I know they're done on the left, and I'll uncheck this and I can go to the next one. It's going to cut the blues. Again, I better make sure that I have the vinyl wherever this piece is situated. Okay? And again, I would have changed this to the material and the action is cut. and the blade I'm using, my machine would have automatically recognized my auto blade, but since my machine's not on, it does not. So I move that over. Next one, I click off of that, didn't do the white, click off of that, and then do the gray. So it's as simple as that. I hope this has helped. If you have any more questions, let me know. And if anyone else has any issues like this, I'd love to be able to try to help you too. Thanks a lot for joining me. If you like my videos, please, please, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Ask questions. I try to answer them all to the best of my ability. And I hope you'll join me again next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.